Hey, what's up? My name is Ayodele Harrison, Senior Partner of Education with CommunityBuild Ventures. I'm excited to be back again. Man, April was full. May has got a lot to go and just really exciting. Today I'm recording in my home office, or I guess out in the hallway of my home office, out actually in my dining room. A lot of construction is happening. My wife and I decided to really engage in some sprucing up. We're coming on our 10-year anniversary here, wedding anniversary. And we've been in this house, I think, 8 years of that time. And so just doing some upgrading, some painting, some new light fixtures, all these other types of things that are happening right now. So you might hear some bumping around, you might hear some music, you might hear or see one of our painters and handy people walk by. It is what it is. But I just wanted to start today. We've talked so much and you've seen so much posting on our blogs, and I've shared this on social media, talking about Brave Space, right? And Brave Space building, and it's this container, this framework that we use to create this container to allow people to show up as their authentic self, or what some might say is unmask in this process, so that they can really be connected, be engaged, and be authentic, so that transformational work can happen. And so with this Brave Space, you guys might have known, but I would just say there's three things that we're going to do that I'm just going to kick this off. It just felt like doing this a little bit different today, and I'll probably do it every single time. So the first three pieces are sharing a moment of gratitude, feelings, and intentions. And so I'm gonna move that ring. I'm always trying to match the ring light. Forgive me if the eyes aren't working so well. Maybe I'll just take this off. There we go. There we go. We'll just fix that. All right. So gratitude. I am grateful for my beautiful wife, who is also president and CEO of Community Build Ventures. She envisioned all of this work. She is not only a great leader in the space of our firm, but is also a great visionary in terms of interior design. You might see the couch, sorry, on the other side behind me. She's the one that picked out the whole pattern, how it should be sewn with the upholstery people. Like, she designed the pillows, all that other kind of stuff. She's got this really strong vision, and I'm just grateful for it, because I don't have any vision for these things in the house, but just grateful for that. How am I feeling? There's a lot of little things. I mean, like I said, it's the end of April. We're going into May. Probably when you see this will be in May. A lot of things have been going on and finished. And so how I'm feeling right now is accomplished. I'm also feeling humbled because of some of the opportunities I was given this month and what's coming up, and also energetic. Yeah, I think that's the biggest piece for me. And my intentions today are just to give you an update on what's been going on. A lot of stuff has been happening. As senior partner within CBV, a lot of life, a lot of speaking engagements. Just wanted to give you an update on what happened for the month, and then just kind of preview what's coming in May, because there's, like, each month there's so much more to do with that. So I'm going to just kind of move the screen a little bit so I can take a look at my notes. All right, so where do we begin? The BME's Talk Leadership Lab experience has been fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Just this last session we had on March 31st, we brought together over 30 brothers, came together, and we had a conversation about equity equity in terms of student learning. So basically, what equity stance should schools take in terms that results in student learning? And so just imagine, like, for me, this was, I've done other videos in other places, but let me just summarize this. One, I've engaged in many conversations around racial equity, educational equity, justice equity, teacher equity, all these other things, right? With a whole host of educational and organization and community leaders around the country and around the globe. I've never had the opportunity to sit and speak with 30 plus brothers only in a closed door session, where we get a chance to learn from each other. We get a chance to make a mistake. We get a chance to practice some things that we normally might not have felt comfortable enough to share in our professional space, all the things that we're working on, and so on and so forth. So it was great to have 30 brothers come on and just share and engage. And we looked at equity in terms of results, equity in terms of creating a personalized learning track for everybody, equity in terms of student learning that is, excuse me, equity as also initial diagnostic assessment so that we can help get children with the right support and help. And my biggest takeaway was two things. One, we don't get enough, Black male educators don't get enough opportunities, don't have enough opportunities to really go to unmask and be unfiltered and just share what their thoughts are, right, about a subject. And then two, my takeaway is that there's value in having a discussion around different forms of equity in terms of student learning. And what I learned was that the different forms need to be applied different ways. We still want the outcome where we're interrupting negative, excuse me, we're interrupting reproductive practices that lead to the negative impact on students, teachers, on families. We're looking to cultivate the qualities, the gifts and talents of all students. Um, and we're looking to eliminate this idea of, or this not phenomenon, this result that's happening where we can predict who's going to succeed and who's going to fail, right? Statistically, that's why these systemic inequities exist. When we can make a prediction, like here in Atlanta, Georgia, I've said this before, a study showed in 2019 that just 20% of Black uh, Atlantans students that are in the third grade can read on grade level by the end of third grade. And so, statistically speaking, if you were to randomly choose a Black child from Atlanta, there's an 80% chance that they won't be reading on grade level. And so, so really just being able to have that conversation and engage and know that equity can look different, definitely across different schools, but then also within schools, because there's a nuance to how we're going to effectively serve. There's different an equitable approach to schools, and understanding that equity could look different for different demographics within the building. So we just had a great time just reflecting. You'll see I'll post some other videos, and maybe in the where you're seeing this in the description, one of the resources, brother Principal Curtis Lawrence from Idea Public Charter down in Louisiana. He and I got on a call, and he shared what it was like to engage in that experience. So you'll be able to hear from him more so than just me, because I know it was exciting, but you want to be able to hear from them. So that's what happened this year. And so, or this past March, well, because it was March when I was able to record it. And then also, like, so contractually, what's been happening? It's been great. So I wrapped up this past month working with Dr. April Warren Grice, who is a educational consultant, a researcher, also a professor at WashU, Washington University in St. Louis. She brought me on to really support her work leading an affinity group of color with the City Gardens Montessori School in Missouri. So we got together and had over, I think it was like 8+ hours of affinity group time, 2-hour blocks and 4-hour blocks. And the thing that just continues to intrigue me and help me endure me to this work, to the work of affinity groups, is that there just aren't enough. There is such a need and a hunger for this space, especially when I get a chance to work with Black males in education. We're just not offered that time to connect. And within this affinity group of color structure, we were able to break out and do work in gender affinity as well. And I happen to have all Black males, and it was just good to see them relax. And there's this point in facilitation where people just kind of, or when I'm facilitating, where you can kind of just see their face relax a bit. And to me, that's that truly unmasking, and just who they are comes forward. They're less filtered with their language, and they're just speaking from where they're at. And I believe that that's a place of great openness. Some might call it vulnerability, but then also a great place of learning and true thought. So it was great to really be able to wrap that up. And just this past weekend, man, what was it? April 24th, Cornell Ellis, the Brothers Liberating Our Communities, the Block, the organization. They're based in Kansas City, Missouri, and what their intention is to recruit and retain Black male educators in Kansas City schools, both public and private, but just to recruit them into the education. And so they had a conference called Liberated X. There I got a chance to, in that community, which was a conference that was centered around Black male educators. They were the presenters, they were the keynotes and those types of things, but also, but everybody was invited to come. And so Cornell Ellis, who is the executive director of the program, he's participated at BME's Talk Leadership Lab. He's done some of the, he's been a part of the happy hour. He's engaged in the Twitter chat. He was just like, man, I want you to come speak. And I said, well, what do you want me to speak about? He's like, you pick anything. And so what I want to share was brave space building with them. So I got a chance to do a 90-minute presentation on brave space building with educators from across the state of Missouri. I had people as far as California and then New York involved. And so that was just a great chance to just share what the brave space building is. And the title of that session was The Unmasking Process, right? And because just briefly, I've said this a bit, but it's like when we go out into the world, into our professional space, when I go out there into the world, for my 16 years of teaching and leading in public, private, international school, I feel like every single day of that, I was wearing a mask, something to make sure that I was protecting, I was putting on a face of knowledge, of clear understanding. Just, I didn't feel like I could be my fully authentic self in those spaces. And so with the brave space building, we use that as a container, as a facilitator to create the conditions that will invite participants, team members, your colleagues to unmask and show up authentically, lean into deep, engaging, necessary conversations that center racial equity. I had not experienced that in my 16 years of teaching and leading in those schools. And it's just recently that I was, that Natasha and Neith Sankofa and those others on our team had created this process that allows us to unmask. So brave space building is what I presented on. I'll share some more notes with that. But it was an awesome experience this past month. And I would say that the what did I want to share? I wanted to share that for me, the I was thinking about what to highlight. As you know, I have a podcast, IO Daily Speaks, and a blog that you can find on the CBV website. And I was thinking about which one of those do I want to share the most? And I think I'm flipping back and forth, but the one I want to share, and I'm going to link in the notes below that I want you to check out is I want you to check out all of them, but specifically I wanted to wanted you to invite you to look at the one called Cold Calls. It's one of my latest episodes from my podcast, Aya Daily Speaks. And the thing that I'm going to put in here is like I wrote this kind of brief not synopsis, like what brought me to wanting to talk about cold calls. And I'll let you read the article, but I'll give you a little bit that I shared in the writing. I flip-flop back and forth whether I should release that podcast, because the release of that podcast just came, I think, either 1 or 2 days after the murderer Derek Chauvin, his verdict came down. And in my heart, I was just like, do I speak about George Floyd? Do I speak about racial justice? Do I speak about justice being served and all these other types of things? And I was just like, a lot of folks have been posting great articles. I send so much love, and my hope is that the family of George Floyd, the community, this planet has gotten some sort of healing around this. But knowing that waiting for justice to be served, we don't have to wait for healing. Healing can come right away. But I'm grateful that if this contributed to greater healing of those members of that community, I'm excited about it. As many other people shared, the work continues. Some people have said this isn't justice, this is accountability. Justice is a correction of part of justice, my understanding is this reconstructing, dismantling and reconstructing this process that where the justice system has actually been created from the ground up with all people in mind, not just rich white people, which is the history of white supremacy, that ideology and how it's built all these systems. And so I was going back and forth. Do I talk about this? Do I do this? And I was just like, no, what's on my mind is talking about the cold calls and my anxiety and nervousness that I have with cold calls. And here's the thing that I wrote. I said this, that Derek Chauvin, George Floyd, Gary Chambers Jr., Attorney Crump, Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, all of the unnamed people that we don't even know, all those that are remembered in the lynching museum that is down here in the South, I think in Mississippi. Forgive me for not knowing exactly. All of those folks, and probably you, didn't attend a K-12 school that was designed in a way that was equitable and world class. And so my fight for justice is about improving the way we serve students, families, teachers, they improving the way we serve the educational community within schools. And so the reason why I make cold calls is I call as a consultant out to schools sharing some of the products and services that we offer at CommunityBuild Ventures. Equity Center School Improvement is one of them. And so while I did not post a podcast on my reaction to the verdict, what I did was share what's my work. It's not my only work, but what work am I engaged in? Fighting for racial equality, fighting for racial equity, for justice, racial justice, all those things can take on many different forms. And then the key is to understand what your form is and what your fight is. And my fight is my work is in schools and working with school leaders and community leaders who want to design, who want to construct, who want to build and then sustain equitable world-class schools. So I pick up the phone and I call people. That's what I do. That's where the podcast came from. So if you get a moment, take a look at the blog. It's based in LinkedIn, but then you can also get to the podcast to hear me so you can hear the pre-story that led to the actual story that was there. So that was the month of April. So I didn't even touch on everything, but I just wanted to give you, I want to make sure I was still recording. I just wanted to give you a little taste of what's happening. And so like, just May, what's coming, like where the day I'm recording this is April 26th. So April isn't over just yet. There's a lot of things on the horizon and I want to give you a little preview. The first is that coming up this week, I'm getting ready to record. I'm getting ready to record a webinar series, not a webinar series, but a webinar for entitled Hiding in Plain Sight. And this is where I'm going to talk about one of the phases of our Equity Center School Improvement. So if you remember, the three phases are understand, embrace, and embody, right? And so in this presentation, so I got selected to speak at the ASCD Empower 20 conference last year, but it was canceled due to COVID. It's now happening this year, later this summer. And it's going to be completely virtual. So what I'm going to do is talk about the understand phase, right? And specifically our equity assessment tool and the 5 different domains that make up the learning environment and how to help people start to look in the right places, because the evidence of inequity is, I believe, hiding in plain sight. Sometimes we have to be introduced and directed in places to look. So in this particular webinar, I'm going to talk about where can we begin to look, how do we begin to collect this data? So what area should we be looking in? And then what tools should we use when collecting data to better understand the equity landscape within schools in our community? So that's what's going to be happening. So I'm just recording that. I'm excited to be able to have that, but that's just a little bit about the understand process, because with the understand component of the Equity Center School Improvement, what happens is that you have a vision, for where you want to be, but and you need an assessment tool to figure out how close are you aligned, your actions, the lived experiences of those in your community aligned with that vision. And then that sets us up for the next place, the embrace, where we're able to actually create an implementation roadmap. So we see where we want to go, we identify where we want to go, we see where we're at, we look at the gaps, and then we decide what's going to be our plan of action in the embrace. So that's what I'm going to be talking a little bit about. And somehow I'm going to fit it all into a 40-minute webinar. The webinar is not going to be released until later, late June, but just wanted to give you a heads up that I was working on that. Also, with the Leadership Lab this Wednesday, so April 28th and May 19th are our workshop number 4 and workshop number 5. You can find those links below to be able to get your tickets if you see this in time. The first one on April 28th, that's this coming Wednesday to me, at the time of recording. What we're going to do within our group is continue to build on this notion of exploring equity, but really start looking at sharing your racial identity. So sharing your racial identity journey. So that's what we're going to be doing with the group of Black men. Then on May 19th will be our 5th and final workshop. We'll be talking about sustaining our success. So we'll talk about, it's May, the end of the school year is coming. If not, it's over for some at that time. We're going to be talking about our success. Also, wanted to share that just a few speaking engagements that are coming up, quite a bit actually. So on April 28th, Wednesday, April 28th, I've been selected to speak at the 2021 NPEA virtual conference. NPEA stands for the National Partnership Educational Access Organization. And so what they do is connect people, practices, and innovations to those who are seeking to eliminate barriers to educational access in college and career. And so I'm going to be there talking about brave space building. So that's on the 28th. So you'll hear me give a bit of a reflection review next month about that. But if you're seeing this in time, register, join us for that. On May 13th, the University of Central Arkansas has invited me to speak at their first ever, the Centering Equity Conference. I want to give that's going to be on May 13th. I get another 90-minute featured session. I want to give a big shout out to Todd Parker, a Black male educator, educational consultant based in San Jose right now, San Jose, California. His company, Parker Education and Development, is his consulting firm. He's the one that connected me to the folks at University of Central Arkansas, where he's done some work. And they were like, hey, we'd like you to come speak. So I'll be speaking there. I'll put the link below if you want to find out more about that and actually join us for Brave Space. If you want an intimate experience with Brave Space, join us in this conference. And then on May 16th, the Bond Project. This is a Black male educator, male educator of color collaborative that does policy work, recruitment work, retention work in Maryland, in the state of Maryland. Specifically, I think it's Montgomery County and other counties around there, have invited me to their 3rd annual Bond Academy. And in this particular piece, I'm getting my first shot ever at, I'm a bit nervous, being a moderator for a panel. And what the panel is bringing together other organizations that are leading work, supporting, recruiting and retaining Black male educators and male educators of color. I think there's TECA, which is based in Tennessee. We're going to potentially have some brothers from Call Me Mister. I think, forgive me, I'll put the link below of all those, but I'm just excited to have the opportunity to moderate. And I've been putting, since I was invited. Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. Daryl. Thank you, Daryl, for inviting me to be the moderator for this particular panel. And I've never been a moderator before, but I've been listening to some panels lately and trying to take notes. And the person that I admire the most who can questions a great interview is Terry Gross on NPR. I forgot the name of her show, but she asked like really great questions, such great questions that many famous folks, authors, entertainers, writers, directors, actors, musicians, they often pause and say, that's a really good question. No one's ever asked me that question before, right? Because Terry Gross does her great research. So I've been doing research on the organizations and thinking about what type of questions do I want to ask them. And my thought is I want to turn it into kind of a workshop to where they can share their work, but then also figure out a way to get them to do some work together. I haven't figured it out just yet. I still got about 2, 3 weeks to figure out the questions and being able to do that. But I'll share more about that next month when I share from the desk of the senior partner. So just a lot of things that are happening this month coming up in May. Just so excited about the growth. One other thing I didn't talk about: United Way. They have a 21-day equity challenge that's going on. Neith and Natasha have been doing a lot to really prepare and build this project out. We've recruited facilitators, all these other types of things, and we're going to be facilitating Brave Space through United Way. And so check out United Way. I think it's .org. Greater Atlanta here, if you want to get involved in that. And there are many different activities that are open to the public. Again, I'll leave that link below. I should have been but I should have had more specifics around that. But just a lot of work is happening this month, going into the summer. I'm going month of May and then soon to be in June. So again, the beginning, my language or my words for the new year was to strategize, strategy, and execute. And right now, there are certain things that we've been strategizing around that are finally being able to execute. And there's things that we're still building strategy around. So we're excited about what's to come out of CBV. I thank you for taking a moment. Hopefully, I didn't take too long. But again, all the links to the descriptions and things like that are below here. But I'd love for you to be able to check them out. If there's any questions, if you'd like to get a meeting to talk about anything that I discussed here, I have 30-minute slots available. Just feel free to email me, iodelli@communitybuildventures.com. I thank you so much for taking a listen to this, and I'll see you next month. Or actually, you know what? Not just next month. I'll see you soon on the road to doing this work that we have in schools, in our justice system, in healthcare, and housing and workforce development. There's a lot, but I wish you well. Take care of yourself. Take care.